Yes. How you doing, Mr.
Good
Lasur?
morning. How are you?
Wishing my colleagues was on time and yours was too. That's what I wish. Good morning. Okay, let me cut my phones off. Uh-huh.
Got three. You need one more, okay. Morning. She's right there.
Yeah, right through there, there may be some in the refrigerator. I think they had some, there was some in there yesterday.
Spot that you like. Let's see. It is. Exactly where we sat last time. Yeah. Where you probably need to get started.
The beep yesterday.
Yeah, it's just.
Was it fun?
It was fun. It just messes up your schedule for the week. You have to reschedule everything. So it was good. All right. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Heidi, yeah, we got three here. 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3. You need one more, or are you okay? You need one more person? Do you? Yeah, school, you need one more person or what? Who? Betina's gonna be late. She's coming, but she's gonna be late. Matt's not coming. I'm gonna go ahead and start. Yeah. So, just to let everyone know, at 10:45, I'm gonna have to jet, and if Wendy's gonna stay, do y'all want to continue the meeting? 10:45, not 11:45. I've gotta run to another meeting. All right. So good morning, everybody. And those I haven't seen this year, I think I've seen everybody. I've seen everybody this year. Happy New Year. Um, so it's good to have you here. And so this morning, I think everybody knows. Is anybody at the table that don't know one another? Y'all know each other. All right. Have y'all, all of you met our attorney? Okay. Would you introduce yourself, our attorney?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Al Andrews. I'm a Durham County attorney, previously with many places, but most previously with the city of Greensboro. I look forward to meeting you all and learning and helping in any way I can. So thank you for having me.
We are very blessed to have Attorney Andrews. We need an attorney for that. We had someone that was filling in but he wanted to go play with the grandbaby. I understand. So let's go ahead and get started. Call the meeting to order. The first item is to approve the agenda. Was there anything else that you can throw on the agenda today? Hearing none. Approval of the minutes. We have the November 29th minutes. Need a motion to approve the minutes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the meetings from November 29, 2022.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Minutes have been approved. Now we'll move on to the UPS budget discussion. Who's got that? Teed up for us.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Paul Lejeure. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Durham Public Schools. Nice to meet you. So, COVID funding was the initial request in regards to what you wanted to hear about today and where we are with our COVID funding. This was on the board docket for last Thursday, but had a few other items that were on the docket that took a little longer than we expected. So my board is hearing this for the first time, but they've seen it since last week. So let me turn off my phone before. So if you remember correctly, we presented this to you last year, probably in February about this time, in regards to where we are with our funding, what funding we've received, and an overview of where we are today. So remembering, we got all kinds of different sources of funds. We got 3 different large pots of money, which Coronavirus CARES Act was the first pot of money we received back in 2020. And we got $13 million, I believe. I'll see it better when I get to it, that we received initially in that regard. We also have Coronavirus Response Relief, CRISA, which was enacted in December of 2020. Oh, next slide, please. Oh, next slide, please. Okay, I'll probably click it wrong. There we go. I could see it clearly. And it was in the second pot of money, the CRISA was enacted in December of 2020 in that regard. It takes time for all these dollars to come out, but we have received another pot of money in March of 21. It was enacted, the American Recovery Plan, ARP. We like to call these ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3 so that it makes it easier for people, because I'm not going to remember CRISA, CARES, and ARP. It's too confusing. Remember, we received these types of funds previously when we had the financial downturn back in 2008-09 timeframe. We received funding, but not to this extent, and not to this extent where we're able to use it for different purposes than was back then. So, as you see here, the CARES Act money was to expire at September of 22. We had to have funding encumbered, that contracts and things of that nature by that point in time. We have ESSER 2, which expires this September, which we have to have all our funds encumbered and expended out by January of 24. And then we have ESSER 3, expires in September of 24. At this time, we're able to encumber it up at that point. You can't encumber for salaries, but you can encumber for contracts and other things that are in place. And that extension on those obligations goes to January of 25. So, if you went and brought up this PowerPoint, you could press the link. It would bring you to the DPI website for the purpose of showing you where and how much we received in different pots of money at any given time, all the different categories that they're funding from the state level, as well as other documents that can provide us with looking at what the needs are at other school districts as well. And they have expenditure reports on their system. I thought I had it right the first time. Okay. Must have hit it by mistake, or somebody over there helped me out. So here, what we have summarized are the first pots of money. The $11.2 million that we received. I said 13. It was $11.9 million. So as far as that goes, $12 million. Plus all these others come out to the $13 million that I was talking about in total. So all these things had to be used. The most flexible pot of money was the 163 funds, but as you can see, that was our emergency relief funds. We use that mostly for our computer purchases, so we could go one-to-one, also for our wireless services that students were able to bring home and teachers to bring home to ensure that we had online learning going on. Also had some funds in there for child exceptional children, other specialized instructional support dollars, more on the EC side as well. And then some supplemental instructional services dollars, 170, which were, I think we used those, some of those were used for the purpose of tutoring and learning recovery. So it's all outlined up there, that the purposes that we could use the funds for. And as I said, these funds were more specific, except for PRC 163. So as we look, I'll go back one. And as you can see, we actually ended up spending all our money by September 30th. We want to get rid of the money, but we want to use it wisely to ensure that we get the best bang for our buck. We did that. The big piece of that was, of course, the purchase of the computers. That was $9 million at the time we purchased them. So, but I just wanted to let you know that the liquidation period, we didn't have to liquidate anything because we'd had the money spent before that point in time. And here's the ESSER 2 and 3 that we've been receiving. So in this chart, what you'll see is different ESSER 2 funds that came to us for different purposes. Again, the most flexibility is in the first one, PRC 171, which we received for $46.6 million. As you can see, a remaining balance of it from encumbrances to expenditures leaves us only at this point $9.4 million. Remember, this has to be spent by September 30th. From that standpoint, we're going to be in a good position to finish up again in September. If not, we have some other plans to make sure we do that may not be on this table at this time. And as you can see, we've received in just ESSER funds $48.7 million. The thing about these ESSER dollars, we actually received 171 money. We've received about $66,000 more. As the state starts to wind down and they see that they have money left over, they're going to throw it at us. So we don't know where they are in capturing of all their expenses. Well, we do know where they are because they have a report that they do that's online, that you can see each of these categories, each of the schools, charter schools as well, on how they're spending the money. But we don't know how much they may be sitting on at the state level that they might throw out to the schools. And they have been known to throw it out like June 15th when we're trying to close out for the year. So I'm waiting for that big, and then they tell us we have to do a revision by the end of June to our plan. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so identification of missing students, we're trying to find those students that didn't come back to Durham Public Schools, that we don't have on our charter school rosters. They're somewhere, and we're trying to identify those students. And that's what that money is all about, is for us to be able to actually use some of our funding and not use it other than for that purpose and that purpose only. Again, all these pots of money that they gave to us separately have to be spent on those programs or for those contracted services that we have to provide, or IT purchasing items. Again, breaking it down to minute. So one of the things we were able to do with some of the money previously in the prior May of 2020 was fold up some of those smaller pots of money to put into a different line item. They gave us the flexibility to do that. Of course, they told us on December 1st that we had to do it by December 31st, and then turned around and we had to make all our adjustments as well as our budget adjustments with the state, which is a timely process to get that done. But staff, we're very capable of spending money and moving money to make sure we get the biggest bang for our buck. So with all these, ESSER 3 as you can see, the big pot was the 104,577. That we have a flexibility with, right? And then we get into other slides. Okay. Oh, as we get, thank you, thank you. So that's our biggest pot of money, and we'll get into those slides a little bit in a little bit.
So mine really quick. One, thank you for being such a good steward of these dollars. I think sometimes when people see 151 million, they thought it was like a lump sum, and they're not broken out into these like programmatic areas. I remember even when you all, well, we got the money, I kind of sort of did a deep dive on DPIs and was just amazed at, oh, this is for this. But to kind of follow up on something that Chair Howerton said, I would love to know, if you wouldn't mind, and I'm not going to belabor this because I know that we have people that have to go and I have to go. Could somebody, and it doesn't have to be Ms. LaSure, maybe give an example? Because I can think for some of the missing children, I get what that is. Like, there's some kids, one parent lost their job during COVID, one parent died from COVID. Now this kid is living with grandma, in Sarasota. And so we had to put funds into finding out where that baby's at. Right. So I do get, but the homelessness one, could you maybe give us an example? Because that's one that I'm not familiar with. I'm just curious, like what, because it's homeless grant 1 and 2. Yeah. So like, what are some examples, something programmatic?
I don't have those off the top of my head.
I should have sent you a message.
For the purpose, well, I mean, so many programs, I don't know the ins and outs of what we're spending it on in its entirety. But I can certainly get that information for you.
Dr. Hardy?
Elaborate on that.
I think Dr. Hardy.
Answer unless somebody back here has that.
Dr. Hardy, were you coming up?
Thank you.
Come on and sit up here.
It's a whole good seat beside me. And that's the only one. I had that one last night when I looked at it, but again.
Good morning. A couple of things that we have tried to do to support our students that are experiencing homelessness. We do provide support in terms of lodging. Oftentimes there are bill support that they need to acquire lodging, as well as clothing, and sometimes transportation. So we really do try to make sure that office is supporting any of our families that are in transition. And often sometimes that means multiple families being together, so resources are significantly impacted, which also impact that youngster. We work very closely with our transportation team to ensure that we don't have additional transitions in terms of schooling if lodging is somewhere else and that child was going to another school, to ensure that we're minimizing that, and then also making sure that we're offering any student support services that family may need or the children may need because of they are experiencing transitions in their life.
I only highlight that because I do hope that after this, so I don't think everybody knows that that's how much you all are doing. So I kind of want to elevate that because, again, people see 151 and they think unprecedented amount of money, we can spend it on anything. And there are these categories, and look at what I think people would love to know, oh my gosh, this is what they did with this, and this is why this kid can still come to class because we got him a ride to school. So I just wanted to highlight that for the thing. But thank you. I didn't know that one, but thank you. Stay right there, Dr. Hardy. Yeah. Julius, you come on up here and sit beside me.
And we did ask, what do they do at school? So is there any way, I think that our lead conversation a year ago, but he got most of the information regarding that. And I'll have to go back and get the lead's name so that we can get all that.
Yes, you can definitely, I can connect with him so that they can either follow up directly with my office or our McKinney-Vento office. It is really important. We also have child fine legislation, so we're always trying to make sure that we are finding youngsters, and if they are experiencing homeless and in Durham, then we have a responsibility to support them.
Could I just real quickly say, I'm having trouble remembering her name right now. Natalie might be able to help me, but the Homeless Services Advisory Committee has a representative from DPS who serves families who are experiencing homelessness, and she's amazing. She is so active and engaged at these meetings and also attends the Policy and Planning Committee meeting, and is one of the more, I would say, active service providers for families and children, who are experiencing homelessness, is the services received through DPS. So I was really thrilled to see that on there. I'm so glad you asked about what do they do.
So again, we have all these little bits and pieces, and thank you for bringing those to light. Again, IDEA for preschool, we have some funding for that. Also, some exceptional children funding. As you can see at the bottom, there's a couple in the 90 range. CTE hospitality grants. I mean, we're getting all types of things to grants and driver training to ensure that some of the programs that aren't going to be looked at closely have some funding through this grant, through these grant funds. So as you see at the top, we only have on this slide $10 million in total remaining of the funds that have to be spent by September 30th, $9.4 million in the big pot, which is dropping every day as we get more services in and expenses from the school level. So we're at a point now where it's probably closer to $7 million instead of $9 million left from that standpoint. And as you can see, 21% of the funds remain, but those will go quickly because we have positions that we're paying against that pot of money on a monthly basis, as well as contracted services and other contracts that we'll talk about later. For the ESSER 3, the first one, the 181 at $104.6 million, we have $72 million of that, or almost $73 million left. It's probably a little bit less than that since this report's done, and we've gotten through the end of January. So we're spending that right on schedule because we have a whole year to go with those funds. So a year and a half to go for those funds, so we're in a good place with those. We'll be looking at those smaller programs that we haven't spent that money yet, and we'll be starting to work with them to plan to get them to either engage in contracts or needed supplies and materials, other expenses that are needed to move our learning loss along. Gaggle, I'm gonna leave that to the experts. Gaggle is a system, Google Gaggle. It's an IT-driven system that monitors our activity at the district and school level to make sure that we're using our computers appropriately. Did I make the right statement on that one? And this is just part of our IT's overall approach in regards to ensuring that our cybersecurity is in place as well. So, I mean, all these pieces and parts go together. Those aren't the main, the state doesn't give us all the dollars that we need for that type of thing, so we're having to fund them with our IT budget as we move along on an annual basis, reviewing what we're doing, what we can get rid of, and what we can do in the future within the funds available. So, next slide, please. So we have $158 million that we're trying to spend in those big pots. Yes, ma'am.
Just real quickly, are there any of the programmatic pieces currently funded by ESSER that you feel like would need to be funded once the funds expire? Have you all identified any of those?
So,
You're my real friend. You're my real friend.
opening up the floor. We have about $158 million worth of needs as we move forward.
And let me clarify.
No.
We're not saying we would be able to cover all of them, but just.
No.
Sorry, Keith.
Mike, to your question, County Manager, I know most of the time when you got grants, folks have the tendency to keep all those programs. We are not at that point yet. We're going to evaluate what we have and what we would like to sustain. Then we'll get to that point, so we'll get back to you.
Thank you. And I want the board to know that Dr. Mubenga is my very best friend. I love it.
So, are there things? Yes. Remember last year we came to you, we told you we had 13 workstation technicians that we needed to fund our one-to-one initiative. We have those being funded through the ESSER program. We're going to have to come back for those funds. Those were the positions we had in the budget. We talked about in the budget process for the last 2 years because we know we have to have those to sustain. We don't have the additional resources for those things. So they'll be coming to you in another iteration of a budget request. But at this point in time, we're using all our ESSER dollars to make sure that we accomplish all our goals and set ourselves up so we can give you a realistic ask of what is going to be necessary as we move forward. Because again, the state funds instruction not very well, I will say, in my 33 plus years in education. It used to be a whole lot better, but it's not anymore, so we're dealing with what we have on an annual basis. The other part is the school district and counties are responsible for the infrastructure and the operations, such as IT, such as maintenance, and so on and so forth. So that's really what it boils down to is those are outside of the scope that the state would be funding. It would be nice if they would, because they've now got all these school districts that are a one-to-one initiative to ensure that if we have to go back out, we can, for any reason down the road, we have the tools in place. Be reminded, I'll always say this when I have the opportunity, is our legislature is holding on to $750 million worth of fines and forfeitures. That's $15 million to Durham County and Durham Public Schools for the purpose of ensuring that we can do the one-to-one initiative and make things work. So again, we are, and that's still tied up in the courts. And we know that the court has just changed, and it looks like it'll probably be held up for another few years. Yep, let's go. Yeah, I have to have my commentaries. So we are going to spend this money. We've already had 5 audits for monitoring visits from the state, from the feds, from the Office of State Budget and Management, and we're only through Q2 of these funds of 22-23. We expect to have more monitoring of these funds. It is not a fun thing to do because we have to send everything to them electronically. They don't understand what we do. They don't understand the information we have. But this is all through Q2, December 31st. So, and as you can see, we just give you a kind of an idea of the per pupil amounts based on the different, the 3 pots of money we have. So this is breaking it down into the different types of programs that we're operating. We've split it up in different areas to meet our goals. Academic services, of course, is a lot of it's for summer learning. A lot of it's for temporary positions in the schools as well as at the district to make sure that we can meet the unique needs of our special population. We had these positions out there for 2 years. The end of the school year is the second year. We did not plan to go into a third year because we want to make sure we're not on that cliff at the end of that third year, but we might extend some if need be, if there's a dire need at a certain school. But again, these are all temporary positions that will be ending up leaving us or filling positions that are vacant currently. And right now, there's no shortage. If these positions weren't in place, we would have a better opportunity of having our classrooms filled. But the support that's needed for all these programs going on is one of those things. The mental health part, so on and so forth, is very critical to meeting our day-to-day student needs. So, yes, ma'am.
How is it really going, though, in terms of actually filling those positions? Because, I mean, it's one thing to allocate and have the funding, you know, for these, for the 14 million, the temporary school-based, and also the 7 million for the district-wide. I mean, we know we're having it in the county, too, difficulty. So I'm just wondering, is the money actually going to be spent? Or have the positions actually been able to be filled?
So you have a couple of dynamics that are going on here. Actually, we are improving at filling our positions. While we still have a number of vacancies, we're not nearly in the same place that we were at the beginning of this past school year. I would also say you have to note the trends of filling positions multiple times. And so there's cost while we fill positions and then they turn over, we're filling them again. And so there's that dynamic that people don't often recognize. It's not necessarily that you have the same position that's vacant, but you may have a position that you filled actually 3 times. And so that's something else. We are prepped and ready to go for a super aggressive recruitment season. We are slated to go out multiple places, both within the United States and outside of the United States, to get teachers and our other positions filled. And so we have our whole recruitment plan that we expect to see the best results from that in filling our positions and being in a much better place this year for the upcoming 23-24 school year than we were for 22-23.
So, but I guess this money is supposed to be spent by the end of this year. So if there is, for instance, money that hasn't been spent for those positions, what will be done?
So every year we have to re-up our plan, and during the year we do that as well. These are our major buckets that we're working with. As we go down the road, we're going to be revising our plan to either move it into other categories to ensure that we have the lap salaries being used so we can use it by the end of the year. And again, we have other plans to expend those dollars that aren't up here for the purpose of ensuring we spend it on it in a timely manner within the guidelines that were provided by DPI. Every one of these documents, every one of these funding sources have specific usage that we have to follow. They have an allotment policy manual and chart of accounts that we have to utilize to make that happen.
Yeah,
a lot of planning and coordinating.
Yeah, Madam Vice Chair, I think we are making efforts of recruiting, but we're also doing some other work to retain the one that we have. So we've been compensating our employees that's been loyal to us. As you all know, we have about 5,400 employees. And our employees, last year, we were able to give them close to $3,000 just to be able to stay with Durham Public Schools. We are very fortunate, and we are not the only district that was able to do that, up to $5,000 to be able to give to our employees and stay. There are some other areas of EC, special needs students, really hard to recruit. We're able to start putting a good $3,000 on the table to be able to recruit those folks. And the math as well. And when we get to the point where we had about 20 more vacancies math, we're able to put up to $3,000 or $5,000 on the table to be able to recruit. So the money that we put on the side for recruitment and retention, we're pretty much playing dual role, making sure the one that has been loyal to DPS, we are compensating them to stay, and then putting some money on the table to recruit the one that's a winner with us. Again, if we say the position that we're able to put 14.4, if the money is not encumbered by the time, but we have also other strategies for retention to be able to use those funds as well.
Thank you. So as you can see, this is moving on to the operational services area where we have $52 million going in there for facility repairs and improvement. We have educational technology. We have enhanced school cleaning and disinfecting, transportation, and for child nutrition. The transportation and child nutrition funds were put in there to ensure that if students didn't come back, we would have some resources that we could offset some of the those reductions in revenues for those programs to ensure that we could have staff in place to meet the needs of all the students that are in our before and after school care, child nutrition programs as well, and our transportation areas. So all three of those areas really actually received additional funding for that. We're still waiting for our final allocation on transportation from the state, usually done in December. It appears that they're having some supply chain issues to get the work done. So that's a critical piece of our final budget for the year, is getting that money from the state and knowing what that final number is. Right now we have $14 million budgeted based on the estimate, and we're expecting it to be in that range because of the salary increases that were put in place.
Well, I just really appreciate you highlighting that operational. Oh, you've gone to the next slide. No worries. I think it's really important for us to celebrate in this space. That's work that we otherwise would have been coming to the county for, the HVAC repairs, the air quality stuff. We've built outdoor classrooms. You all might see those as you visit our schools. Our teachers and students love those. And that $9 million of tech money. I mean, we would be coming desperately with hat in hand to you all that we are really doing some significant operational improvements. And Dr. Monk is on that all the time and his team. So just wanted to celebrate that we're trying to do that very responsibly. So.
Could you say a little bit more about the transportation piece?
Yeah, so for transportation, we can charge this program for as it states up there, the extended day and summer school programs. But we also had money, and that's to support those programs with the ongoing efforts that we have for reading loss in summer school. So we can use those dollars for that. We also have, and I want to make sure you're talking about the transportation, 1.9 million, or what I discussed in regards to the state. So, yeah.
Is it that we can do around the association and the fact that we're going to a conference the second week of February? In other words, who can we be talking to about
Well, the transportation area is really the key cog there in regards to additional transportation funding. You know, there have been cuts over the years at the General Assembly. You know, it's all about them being more transparent in their funding to begin with, and how they go about their process of rolling out the funds to us. But Kevin Harrison is the Director of Transportation at DPI, and he's really the one that could provide insight to how they work with the General Assembly to try to get funding in this day and age. They've been pretty good when it comes to fuel. If fuel's going up, they're willing to provide us some additional. But other than that, the real key we have in Durham and other school districts is that with transportation funding, they have a cap on how much we can pay per hour. And I think that this year is like $18.67. And that's our first 5 steps on our pay grade that can be funded. Other than that, we can only charge the state up to that amount, and the rest has to come out of local. So our local costs continue to go up because a living wage goes up, right? And we have to make sure that we have those local resources available as well. So there's so many things in that regard. You can only use transportation funds for the yellow bus. So any activity bus, so on and so forth, that's paid out of local as well from that standpoint for activities. And we have to actually reimburse the state each month for the use of those yellow buses for the purpose of using them for during the day activities, because it's really to and from school that we can charge those expenses. Yes. So each month, at the end of the month, transportation comes up with how many yellow buses were used for usage outside of the normal drive to, drive home from school. And we have to reimburse the state on a monthly basis through our reporting mechanism. And so we pay the people, we pay the bus drivers, we pay for the bus, we pay for the fuel, all out of the transportation allotment that they give us from the state. And then we have to take, and sometimes it's been up to $700,000 a year that we've had to reimburse, because we have also in there tort claims, which is paying for accidents, so on and so forth. So, but that's the highest I've seen it, is $700,000 a year, but it's usually around $350,000 to $450,000 a year that we have to transfer back to the state.
One of the things that Paul highlighted, and we're thankful for our local dollars, is that we are able to cover a lot of costs for some of our transportation and our bus drivers over that $18 an hour, thanks to this local funding. So when I think about advocacy across the state, I think about all the districts who can't cover that extra cost and who are also still struggling to get kids to and from school. We know we have superintendents, we have principals. Our director of transportation is driving the bus on a really consistent basis. And so I think if you think about advocacy on a statewide level, there's a transportation issue where kids in rural and in urban can't get to school. And we understand if you can't get to school, you can't learn, there's food, access to other resources that students can't have. So in an advocacy way, that would be a really great thing to see on a statewide level. How are we supporting school districts to get children to and from school?
Yes. CDLs, if I'm not mistaken, take up to 6 months to receive, Dr. Moe? That was a yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I mean, we all remember the days of our teachers and also our fellow students driving buses and things like that. So, I mean, we do need to look at more flexible policies. And I would add also, policy-wise, that in the state, Department of Transportation penalizing when schools encourage walking to school. That is a policy that we also needs to be changed, and that instead that it should be incentivized and not penalized. You know, when kids are in walk zones and walk to school, or you know, pedal to school rather than take the bus.
Just want to saw Mr. Palmer look up when you talked about walking to school. We did just pass a resolution last week for safe routes to schools, and we're applying for a grant funding to support just that effort, making sure that there is safety and that we're allowing families to be active, allowing students to be active and walking and having sidewalks and education going forward. So hopefully we'll get that grant funding to support safe routes to school.
And I would ask if you all have resolutions like that, that please pass them on to us so that we can support that, because, okay. Okay, great, because that also fits into our overall, you know, transportation goals.
So there was not a, or did you want it to come from the board?
I think the full board support would be great as we're applying for this grant. I think it'll be good for them to see that this is not only a school district, but a county also priority to make sure students have safer routes to get to school.
So I will forward it to the clerk and let her format that, because it wasn't formatted.
And I mean, we could do a resolution as well, because right now there is, in the infrastructure bill, there is funding designated for safe routes to schools. And on the MPO, we are making a concentrated effort to go after that funding and prioritize that. So that's something that we all can work together on right now.
In our other pots of money, we have for administrative staff recruitment, as Dr. Lassane spoke to a little bit, and Dr. Mabenga spoke to in regards to these strategies that we have in place for recruitment and retention of our staff. Again, we gave out another $1,500 bonus to staff this past October. So we continue to grow resources that have been provided to the teachers as well. School level strategies, they're using it for various programs to work on PD for their staff, so on and so forth. We have a lot of money set aside there for the purpose of ensuring that we can provide the services needed to all those students, as well as all the support that the schools require. Then we have some administrative and ancillary services, some budgeted for human resource initiatives. We have tuition reimbursement for aspiring teachers, bringing IAs and providing them coursework to get into the classroom, which is the most needed piece of our vacancies at this point in time, though everyone at this in the administrative level would say my people are critical too. I understand that, but having a teacher in front of a child is much better than having a substitute in front of a child, and we can all agree with that. And then we had $684,000 worth set aside for COVID tracers. We're still working with that. Get my COVID test every week just to make sure that we use our investment. So as we're looking at where we are, where we're headed, looking at our current budget, $151 million worth of ESSER funding for ESSER 2 and 3. As you can see, this is just another look at how it's going. And again, we have a remaining 55% remaining of these funds that are of those two pots of money that we have identified, or that were identified by the state, that have various usage and not specific usage to it. So, any further questions?
Thank you so much for this detailed presentation. It's like all of the federal money that has happened over COVID, it is mind-blowing. I mean, honestly, $163 million of money coming into Durham Public Schools, and, the city and the county, this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing, once in a generation, so I know that, and then, figuring out how to spend it and track it, and I know what it's like on our end, so it's a huge task. And I mean, I'm glad to see there's still quite a bit of money left for the next 2 years. So I guess one of my questions is, are you planning to, because for instance, okay, it went down, but a lot of them, there's like 98% left for school strategies. So do you think that you'll be kind of using it in similar ways, or that you've seeing that you'll need to pivot with the focus, or what are your thinking about the next 2 years? I'm just wondering that in general. I mean, I know it's very general, but just wondering what things are looking like.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We are pretty much data-driven. We're looking at data. As we all know, the impact of the pandemic when it comes to student learning, the impact is going to be there for 3 or 4 years. So we're looking at data, and we're making adjustment as we're moving along. As long as our DPS is going to give us the flexibility of using the fonts, and every time we sit down, we look at data, and we're making adjustment accordingly. But let me say also this. When we're looking at this funding, I think one of the areas that we're going to struggle across the state is about recruiting teachers. A lot of these local universities, they're not producing enough. DPS, if we have about 2,500 teachers, just a turnover of 10%, that's about 250 teachers that we have to recruit in a year. I was with NCCU a few months ago, meeting with our future graduate. There are only 16 that will be graduating in May. I get in touch with ECU. They don't have much. So we started even going internationally. We went to Jamaica. We recruited 22. We're going to Honduras. There are about 30. They were able to screen for us. We're going to recruit. So recruitment is going to be really crucial for us. There are other districts like Guilford County. They're putting a good $25,000 there for a math teacher on the table for a person to stay there for 3 years. So as all these districts are becoming really flexible about putting money on the table, we have to be able to be in our A game as well so we can have staff. Without having staff, it's going to be really critical. Then the number two, when it comes to academic needs. So summer programming, I think the first year we were able to work with a lot of students. Last year, it went a little bit down. It's going to continue going down, but we have to be able to multiply strategies as far how can we reach out to those students after school, which is going to impact transportation. And as we have a shortage of bus drivers, you're not going to pay them $18. We probably, during the summer, we're putting a good $5 extra per hour so that they'll be willing to come and work with us. And the same strategy, we used to pay our teachers $25 to work during the summer. Now we're paying them $40 so that they'll be interested to come. So we'll be making adjustment before we get to September 2024. We are very confident that the money will be used properly.
First of all, that's again something that we can lift up at the state level. This is about, the pipeline for teachers, the terrible wages. But, Dr. Mbenga, I remember years ago at Student U, you helped to announce, the idea of starting a homegrown teacher program. And that's something I feel like we could partner together on, the county and DPS, and, think about how do we incentivize Durham Public School students. I mean, I know this is a long-term strategy, but also it fits in with one of our priorities in the county, which is workforce development and creating a pipeline to good jobs here. So I would love for us to really work together on something like that. Let's grow our own. I mean, bringing in teachers internationally is fantastic, but, let's look at a lot of different strategies so we could meet a lot of different goals And I get it. My youngest child is actually applying to teaching programs right now, but I have to really work on him because, the salary part was like offensive. It's offensive. I have a
Madam Vice Chair,
yeah.
let me just react
Yes,
to it quickly. I know at some points the community would like to know how we're spending $18 million.
Yes.
So
yes.
that's something that I'm going to bring to our board probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So as far as the program that you mentioned, that's we had a dream when we made a student year.
Yes.
$18 million is going to address that.
Oh,
and then the future
fantastic.
conversation will be, once the board approves that, how we're going to be able to sustain those programs.
Yeah,
lot
I
of
was going to say,
stuff.
I don't want to make any commitments out here, but I think the idea is that there's a lot of opportunities that we can see in helping support some change. And so that 18 could potentially be used to address some of those challenges that we're seeing. And I think that I appreciate the offer. We definitely want to work together. We have a teacher assistant to teacher program currently that we're able to support tuition dollars, right, for some of our TAs who have been in the classroom for a really long time, who know our students really well, and now are getting their credentials. So we want to continue to grow and expand programs like that. And we have to do some of that outreach outside of the country, but also currently here in what we have in Durham. So we're doing a lot of that and excited to hear about more partnerships. I know Durham Tech has also been around the table and having conversations around supporting us with that as well.
Really quick, because again, I know people have to go. I just wanted to follow up on a comment that Commissioner Jacobs made. I know for me, I get to talk to some of you. I'm so happy that you told us about what you're doing with recruitment. I do just want to elevate in this space. I think that a lot of folks at this table operate in their own silos. Some people go out into the community, some people don't. I am encouraged to know that you have been so proactive in your recruitment for teachers, because I know what's going on in the classrooms and the fact that you're doing it. But I would really appreciate it. I don't know if our PIO and your PIO could get together. The community really needs to know that you all are like putting in the labor pains. And I don't personally feel like they do know that. So whatever steps we need to take to make that happen. And I say that because, our own office, people said something about our ambulatory services. And I know that the two women that lead our work were very proactive last year and paid for these things in advance. And nobody wanted to elevate that in the media. It literally is a supply chain issue. ECU right now, we got 60 counties that don't have a dentist under 60. And ECU says if we graduate every kid out of a dental program, we would not make a dent in North Carolina. And then you elevate this about NCCU having 16 students. 16. I almost don't even think people know that that's what the deficit is. So these kind of Herculean efforts that you all are making towards recruitment, I am on board with Chair Umstead and Chair Howerton and Vice Chair Jacobs that, we should work on something homegrown. But I do think we need to do a better job of elevating all the good stuff that you are doing, because I honestly don't think anybody knows. And so I know y'all like, dang, Nama said something nice. Yeah, y'all wait. Like, bathe yourself in that. But I want you to do that. And also, my last thing, if you go to the county's Twitter page, if you go to the city's Twitter page, and you go to the school board's Twitter page, everybody has really great stuff going on. I'm pretty sure my colleagues at the city have no idea that that's what's going on. And those are awesome microphones. I ain't saying they need to come over here and get in our business, because they ain't giving no money. So I don't need to but I do think that that's another mouthpiece, because those are people who know teachers. Those are people who can have students. So I don't know, this year I just really want us to get in the business and the practice of telling the good stories that everybody around this table is doing.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Burns. There is a lot of good work happening to recruit and to retain our staff, our teaching staff, and our classified as well. I would also want to say to what you mentioned, Vice Chair Jacobs, and this is something that you talk about often, is housing. So along with being creative, a long-term plan with our homegrown, some more midterm plans and conversations we can have is around teacher housing. So we've begun some of those conversations again. I'd love to see us bring that back up as far as incentives and affordable housing for our educators.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. And so let me, before I go to the housing, let me go here first. One of the things that, when you're talking about homegrown, one of the things that the North Carolina Association of Counties is doing is bringing in folks, because when you talk about public administration and managing, there is a shortage of folks that can even work in county government. So the association statewide is bringing in folks that are mentoring and training people that can do this work. And when I think about teachers and the schools, I think that that model can also be used in that arena as well. And as far as the teacher housing, that conversation came up yesterday. Attorney Andrews just came on board with us. And here, Umstead and I have had the conversation about the teacher housing. But I think our attorney needs to talk to DPS attorney so that they can get on the same page with this conversation. We support it. I've been waiting for DPS's attorney to get back with the school board to let us know, with the county commissioners, to let us know where she is with documentation and whatever she needs to do, because that's where it drops right there. And what I've asked is that we give Attorney Andrews a minute to get up to snuff as to what's happening, and then we'll see where we need to go with that.
Yeah, no pressure, but we are ready, so looking forward to these
I'll make
conversations.
sure I make that connection with our attorney as well.
Yeah.
All right.
And Leandro is a thing that you guys will continue to lift up, and we believe that your rural colleagues will be where the pressure points need to be heard.
There are two conversations going on with the association, because I'm on the board of directors, and we had meetings Friday and Saturday. And some people don't want it to be named that. They want to name it something else. But the overall majority was to keep the name what it is. But that's going to end up in our Senate, and conversations are going to be pushed. But it is on the agenda of the Association of County Commissioners.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that you all are having those conversations, because the dollars have to come. And thanks.
Other questions, comments?
I just had a quick follow-up. One of my other questions was going to be about the plans for the 18 million. So I'm glad if you could keep us updated on that, that would be great. And the teacher housing issue, I really think we need to elevate that and put that on a fast track. And I think part of that is also we really need an assessment of all of the public land that is owned by the city, the county, Durham Public Schools. It is a huge asset, and we really need a policy around that. I know I'm like a broken record, and I will keep bringing it up, because we have to leverage what we have. And I heard a great interview with the superintendent of the Los Angeles school district, which I believe is one of the biggest in the country. And he spoke about that we have minimal control over salaries, so we have to look at what we can leverage. And they're using teacher housing as part of their incentive package to recruit and retain teachers. So let's get working on the housing piece, and let's get something done.
If if I can quickly react, I think teacher housing has been really under our radar for the past 5 years, and I'm glad that we're bringing this back up. And as far our facilities are concerned, we're going to come up with the list, and I think as we're talking about those facilities that DPS has, I think we are also interested to bring on the table future growth. Where can we acquire some additional lands, knowing that Durham does not have a lot of spaces? So we would like to be really proactive at looking at those as well. So at some point, vice chair of both county and board, if we can sit down, we're going to generate the list of what we have and then have those conversations. I think that will be helpful. So I'll follow your lead, and as far as DPS is concerned, we're going to generate the list of all we have, and then I'll start that conversation again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Howerton. Thank you, school board members and staff for your presentation. I heard you all talking about the efforts in recruitment for new teachers. I was also wondering what efforts are, obviously I know you guys are doing this work, but just to share the pipeline for principals, what's that looking like, what type of investment is going into building up our pipeline for principals, because I know it's very limited right now, and retirement is going to be coming for some of them soon, so what we're doing to prepare for that.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that question. I think we're in a good place when it comes to pipeline for principals. We have 55 principals, and we have somewhere around 80 APs, assistant principals. So we've been really promoting within. With that pipeline of APs, we should be able to have our future principals. But we are also collaboratively working with NC State, with NILA program. Every year, we've been training our APs. We have also Chapel Hill as well as NCCU that we've been working closely. And when it comes to replenishing our AP, we don't have a problem. I think we're working really well. But our future principal, they will come from the rank of those 80 APs that we have.
Any other questions? Concerns? We have one citizen that would like to speak. Oh, you got another presentation. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Let me make sure that you get. Oh, so Mel, can you just wait till we get all the presentations done, and then we'll have you speak. Okay? That works for you? Are you the Neil? Okay. How do you pronounce your last name? It's Connor with a K. Thank you. All right. So let's go ahead.
Okay. So let's go where we are today with the budget overview in regards to what where we've been, where we're headed. And just a couple highlights on here. Thank you, county commissioners, for supporting teacher supplement increases. That has been a huge advantage for Durham Public Schools. Though we're not quite at Wake County is, it's always chasing the mouse to try to get, or the hen to try to get ahead. We're at a position where you have increased salary supplements, $2,075 for a beginning teacher over the last 5 years, bringing it from $4,375 to $6,450 this current year. So I applaud the board and the county commissioners for moving that forward. Operational services, just want to say thank you for all the support in regards to getting us our bond. We're looking forward to start spending that $500 million because it's desperately needed and to assist us in getting where we need to be in our schools. And also, you supported us in establishing our multilingual resource center by providing some positions over the year to ensure that we make sure that all parents and staff and students are being taken care of in our ever-changing school district. I mean, we're right now over almost 6,000 students, I think, that are in our public schools that are English learners that we need to support, and we want to thank you for that. Okay. Oh, it's probably going to go up about 5 at once. must have hit the stop button. I don't know. Can you move me forward? So, yeah, well, that's what I do best. I break things. So here's where we are today in our initial request. We're looking, based on what the state did last year, 4.25% salary increase for certified salary. We're looking at classified salary of 4%. These are the largest salary increases that they've made in a long period of time. Things that still kill us are the retirement rate, going up from 24.5 to, we're estimating 25.75. It could be more. We won't know until the General Assembly starts dealing with that later in April, May, June. That's $740,000 just for that rate increase and for retirement. And then you have hospital insurance that's killing us as well. I mean, we're at 7,397 going up to estimated 8,350. Could be more than that. We're still waiting on that. That's $1 million. That's a lot of money going into just items that are really benefits to people, yes, but the cost of those are killing school districts. And again, they're trying to look to get up to 30% in the retirement rate by 2025. They'll be there soon. So last year, you provided us some money. We were able to use $3 million of the funding that you provided us to increase the salary supplements for teachers up to the 64 beginning level. What we have now is we stated last year that we'd be coming back with a salary study to bring our classified salaries in line. We've had a study done. They're not done with it yet. They said that it's going to be $10.8 million to implement from that standpoint. And we're looking above the salary increases to need an additional $4 million for that purpose alone to implement the salary study in its entirety. Total $9 million for Durham Public Schools to be able to implement the salary schedule or the salary study. One of the key critical parts that we have, any dollar we get from the county, we have to share with charter schools. And in that, with that said, we're requesting another $1.8 million to make sure that we have the whole $9 million to be able to implement the salary study at one time. So there's another, bringing the total ask up to $10.8 million.
When it comes to salary study, so we're looking about 2,200 employees that are going to be impacted. Bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodians, anyone that is not certified at DPS, they're going to be impacted with this. So I just wanted to share with you the volume of folks that's going to be impacted. I think the study was done by a consultant group that have done really good work, and they were able to pull the county salary, the city, and then they were able to pull Wake County, Guilford County, Chapel Hill, I think Johnson County as well. That's how they came up with those recommendations. So that's about $10.8 million that's going to cost us to be able to implement this, but we strongly believe if the state is going to give us the 4.25 for certified and then 4 for classified, the fund that we're going to get from the state, and then couple that with what we're requesting, about $4 million, we'll be able to take care of our classified employees.
Just a quick follow-up on that. That's really good news. Great news, actually. Dr. Mabinga, would you say then that with the additional $4 million to implement the classified salary study increase, that all of Durham Public School staff would then be making a wage that is one on which they could live in Durham?
That.
Wage, I think was pretty much compared to
Well, what is the base level? I mean, I'm just for our own purposes, you know, when we're thinking about our own employees, what is the minimum that we're you know, that we think's acceptable in Durham? So I'm just trying to figure that out. Where are you all landing? Where are we going to land? Where's the city going to land?
Say probably for what bus driver is going to be, what capital workers is going to be. But what we're going to do probably sometimes when we finalize the whole document, we'll be able to share that with you at some point. Yes, we'll be glad to share that document.
So our bus drivers are at 1836 currently. From the $17 an hour, we gave them an additional increase last year, and with the up to $17, and with the salary increase of 4%, we were able to get it up to 1836. So, I mean, we're looking for that to go into 19, closer to 20 with the salary study. Again, when we do that, right, more of the push is coming back to local because of the fact that transportation is not going to go up, provide us reimbursement up to $19 at the most. So, from the state. So it becomes everything we're doing to make sure there's a livable wage, people are in a good place to be able to pay their bills, is pushing down on the district to ensure that we can make that becomes a local expense. Correct. Bus drivers are outliers. Yeah, so those that are at 16 are going to go closer to the 17 mark to ensure that we can be in a good place with that wage. I think a lot of the Durham County employees are starting off at $17 an hour, if I'm not mistaken. Your bus drivers in the city are making more than what we were able to pay. It's just we can't. We have to have people that love students and want to work for Durham Public Schools.
What about instructional assistants?
Instructional assistants is being looked at. They're going to be on a higher scale than others in that same range. The instructional assistants are going to be placed at a higher scale. The exceptional children IAs, the ones that are hard to get, are going to be on a higher scale as well. So trying to differentiate some of those programs and ensure that we can get the resources in the classroom that we need, that we're lacking right now.
Thanks so much for highlighting this. I'd like to make sure that as we're having this conversation, we're reminded that lots of our staff who aren't making what your staff are making, we're competing with you guys to get people, to retain people working in our schools and driving our buses and providing services, nutrition services and custodial services that are important to move ahead, and remind ourselves that these people are also wanting to be paid enough so that they can live and live well in Durham and not have to live outside of the city or the county in order to support our schools.
It would be good to get what Heidi just asked for, to see what's happening around salaries in the school, city, and so that we can do some comparisons. Commissioner,
Thank you. For this percentage rate increase, what was that dollar amount that we're increasing salaries, or that the ask would be increasing salaries for the lowest paid employee at DPS? Because I'm wondering, using this rate, not including the salary study increase that would come, hopefully, of how long it would reach for the lowest paid current employee at DPS to reach that livable wage of $23 per hour in Durham County.
It would take probably 2 to 3 years to get there for livable. Oh, the 23. Oh, yeah. We wouldn't get there without the classified salary study moving it forward. It's still going to take a number of years to get to that rate. I mean, but again, it's a cost that the state needs to start supporting, because they are also in the same game that we are. They had $6.2 billion of revenue left over last year that they put in the rainy day fund and did a few other things with. Again, their revenue projection was $1.2 billion over where they were planning it to be based on the December estimates or November estimates. So it appears that they have money to do things that they need to do. Let's put it that way. And they need to add it on to school districts as well as other agencies. Yep. So, let's see. I'm good. Okay. Yeah, we don't have a lot of slides, so if you want me to just go through it, you might spur some more questions. So, beginning teacher supplement. This is where we were looking, comparing ourselves to Wake County, hoping to get ahead of them in the overall beginning teacher salaries. They're about $200 more than we are in the beginning teacher supplement. As far as that goes, they're a little over 6,700, I think. We're at 64, we're close to 6,700. We're at 6,450. But the gains that you all have made, as you can see, from 16 to 17, the blue line at the bottom, to where we are today, we've taken the linear approach. If you look at the dark line for 22, 23, it goes up steadily across the board. And teachers also get their year of experience step each year as well. So with the supplement continuing to grow, you can see the red dotted dashed line at the top where Wake County, about 12, 13 years, they start an uptick in their amounts that they're paying to their veteran teachers. Again, this year we're looking at classified salary study. We'll be coming back to you in future years to continue to look at the supplement to be compatible and comparable with other school districts around us.
I do want to make a quick comment.
Me too.
I mean, Wake County has a much lower per pupil allotment than we do, so they're allocating their local dollars differently than we are too. I just want to point that out.
That was, I don't have to say the first thing because she said it. But I did, this was a board that, out the gate, and this is going to jump into the other one, but also to this one. I came out the gate, one of the first votes to say, how we get to 15? How do we get to 16? How do we get to 17? So I don't want that to get lost because I already know, I know how some people in here move. I want to make sure that we remember that this work that we did last year on supplemental pay, right now in front of me, I'm happy that Chair Howerton always elevates the County Commission Association because every year they do something called a map book. That map book actually shows how much each county, all 100 counties, do for teacher supplemental pay. There are only 10 counties that are even at 6,000 or more, like 10. Everybody else, you see 1,000 here, and it is the rural county. So we've already had that conversation. It is your rural colleagues who in no way are going to the General Assembly to ask for more money. They're absolutely not. And Durham right now, the ranking, it depends on what day you ask, because $200, I get what you said about Wake County being 200 more. $200 is not going to make people decide on Wake or Durham County. It's really not, not $200. That's not even gas. But we are ranked number 5 with our supplemental pay. 5 or 6, 2021, 2022. So we still rank really, out of all 100 counties. So when we're sitting here talking about who we're comparing ourselves to, I'm proud of the fact that there are 100 counties here and 95 of them are behind us. And I do get it, the cost of living is higher here. But I do just want to say, I haven't polled all my board members. I looked at this budget last night when Monica sent it out. I don't think anybody in here is at a position where we're going to be like, absolutely not. We're at a good place if it stays there. I don't know that it hadn't happened since I've been on the board. I also wanted to throw out, last thing I want to throw out about some of the teacher supplemental pay. When we talk about Leandro, I do hope that it would be great. I think not just for me, for some of my colleagues, for some of the teachers, I don't know how we do this when we talk about Leandro. You're able to say $750 million. You know how you said the $6.4 billion that they just put back into the kitty? I think we know those numbers. I really don't think, And I think our parents are great advocates. I think if they knew that that was the type of money, because when you say Leandro, most people can't really articulate and tell you 5 things about it. They can't. And I do hope that that's something that we can do, something that we can do from the county standpoint, and say, hey, parents, this is real. Here's what we've done. Here's what the state has not done. Because we have in this very kind of privileged environment because we know what's going on. But I don't think 33,000 parents know that there's money that could be helping out their kid's favorite teacher. I think they know, they just don't know what that means. And so I am hopeful that as we have these conversations, I know that the women on this side, everybody over here is prepared to advocate. That's not saying nothing about this leadership. But I'm saying this is leadership. Brenda's in leadership, Bettina's in leadership, Wendy's in leadership. They're gonna be in spaces that we're not in. So, and Keith did run during the policy conversation, Keith or David did run the numbers to see, what would $23 look like. It looks like, I think, a 4% tax increase on top of the bond, and then also thinking about, and I had this conversation with Javanya, we have things that we're supplementing for ARPA. That's gonna run out in 2026. Y'all, that's like a balloon payment waiting. Y'all wanna last meeting, y'all wanted to get back on the bond schedule. That's gonna be waiting for us in 2026. Y'all wanna pay. So think about what 2026 looks like. So whenever I'm asking questions, it's because mathematically I'm thinking about everything that's gonna hit us like a balloon payment in 2026. So just think about those things.
Right, and the critical thing is if the state ever did fund Leandro, right, it frees up some of our local money that we put into those types of programs and provides us the additional resources needed to make sure that we have more in the classroom for the students. So, and when you talk Wake County, they have economy of scales, right? I mean, that's the other part of that. They might have a lower per pupil, but their economy of scales is so much different than ours.
You have more?
Oh, no, not really. It's just a budget calendar as we move forward for the rest of the year and meet up with you. There's also some other documents in here that talk a little bit more about what's occurred, where you can go if you want to download some information about Durham Public Schools, but we're good. Any questions you may have?
Let me just make a final comment here. As far the salary study is concerned for our classified employees, I know some of them may be watching. We're going to be able to implement this if county commissioners, they fund what we're asking for. Also, if the state give us the full that we're asking for. If we don't get the state portion, it's going to be really hard for us really to implement this as we are foreseeing this to happen. So I just really wanted to make sure as we're having this conversation, don't want you guys to give us funding, say, then what happened? We did not get the state portion. So hopefully our projections are based on what the state will be able to give us as well.
Adults are like kids. They go, you promise.
Right.
What happened?
And I do also want to add, this is the draft budget. We just got our first presentation of this last Thursday, so our board will also be looking at and considering, are there additional asks that we want to make? So I just want to make that sure that really is clear when the budget, wait for the train to pass, when the budget comes to you later, it could be different based on what we see from our Board of Education. Since this meeting got moved, that's why we got a really draft budget that you have presenting here.
This is a baseline.
This is a baseline ask, exactly. Thank you, Heidi.
We knew that another budget wouldn't be ready until April. And we felt that the staff needed to have some framework about what it is they need to start to look at. So this was the only time we could get it on the agenda before April. So that's why it's here today.
And as we go to the board and they, when and if they ask for requests of additional support, we will provide that to your staff to make sure. But this coming out in January is a good thing so that we can at least see what we're asking for and the reason why this big ask on the front end.
Other questions?
got two citizens here to speak, so we've got Jeff now, and you'll be liaison. Okay, carry the meeting.
Yeah, I have some questions that probably, if we could get sent the answers later, that they're not, I'm sure, things that can be answered now. I do want to point out, though, that we passed the bond knowing that there's going to probably need to be a tax increase associated with it. And we do have, just in general, all of us have ARPA resources. I do hope that we will keep that in mind with the budget, be as conservative as we can be as it impacts our residents who are already really struggling with inflation and things like that. But some of my questions relate to that first slide. Paul, can you go back to that? Yeah, I'm sorry, the one before. That one. Yeah, it would be helpful for us to know what are the current vacancy levels with staff. I know also just enrollment numbers, where they're at right now. And if you have any data on, charter schools, homeschoolers, I'd love to know what's going on with the online learning program. I know, again, this is all pre-COVID. You had a brilliant idea, Dr. Mabenga, about how to involve homeschoolers with the DPS curriculum as well. I know a lot of things got put on the back burner with COVID. And just what is your plan and policy around use of lap salaries? Because, that's something that we're dealing with here too, right? Just understanding with trends, what are the projected future vacancy rates based on those trends? Because again, that's going to involve what is the projected ask related to those. Understanding what the different salary levels will be with the implementation of the compensation study, and it would be great if you could share that study with us when that's done. And just, understanding what are the salary levels for certified and classified that we're trying to get to. I'm also curious of what is the value of the benefits package that Durham Public Schools provides. This is, again, something that we look at the county. How do we better promote the whole package of what people get? Because people tend to just look at the salary and not the other piece. And we've talked a lot about how do we really push that. And then I know there was one category that you said you all were going to try to fund. It seems out of operational funds or lap salaries related to supervisors, directors. I'd be curious to know what is that amount. And just to be clear, are you also on this slide, are you projecting that you are going to be able to also within your budget, your funds, do the increase of the $833 for the teacher supplement is something that you all are going to plan on? That's because that's what the increase is going to be, right, for the next year. How will that be covered? Is that no? Oh, okay. 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 Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I'm just really also curious about, I see there's some performance bonuses, just understanding, are there any, what's going to be happening? What do you expect related to that trend with the state? And also, I just want to point out, our board has now approved over $10 million in ARPA funding, and the majority of that actually goes to support families and children. There's almost $3 million for the Durham Public Schools Foundation Whole Schools Initiative. There's money in there for after-school programming at Durham Parks and Rec, maternal and child family health. I mean, basically, most of the money in there is going to help support our families. And I just want to throw out there topics. I feel like there's so many things that we need to talk about in our future meetings. I just want to throw out, number one, I'd love to learn about the redistricting plan, if that can be shared with us at some point. We've talked about trying to get a handle on what are our current investments that we all are making right now related to physical and mental health, the county and the schools, for social, emotional health and support. And then, so we can understand what the gaps are. The other thing I had on my list was teacher housing. And the last thing is I would love for us to have a conversation about CTE, career readiness, and our jobs pipeline. We are investing a lot of money into the Bulls Initiative and other workforce programs. And we haven't heard, we really need to circle back to know about the 321 initiative. And, you know, we can share with you about our own economic incentives policies and how we try to build in connection to Durham Public Schools. But we've got to strengthen what we're doing with starting in middle school and really work together like this on the jobs pipeline, because that's going to be the real solution to our poverty in Durham.
Quickly, Madam Chair, if I can
Yes.
make a couple comments here. Yeah, the salary study, we're able to send the presentation to our your board clerk. She has it. We'll be able to share that with you. Quickly, I think we're going to respond to, we'll be ready for those presentations. I'll say this. Last year when we came here for the teacher supplements, whatever you guys gave us, we're short about $1 million. And I really want you to know that we have to go to our fund balance to make sure that's a reoccurring. That's how we're pulling whatever we have as a lab salary, we have to push it back to that to make sure that we're sustaining that gap when it comes to teacher supplements. But in the future, Paul this year will be ready to be able to share with you, yes, we may accrue a good $5 million there for lab salary, but we're pushing some back to be able to address other needs as well.
So
Go ahead.
one of the things we never know is what is the salary increase going to be, right? Last year we budgeted 3 and 2.5%, I believe it was. Came out to 4.5%, 4.2% for certified. So we just don't know. We're always a catch-up game, and yes, we have to put some of that money that we have in lap salaries right back in, as you all do, to ensure that you have the funding available to support your programs. Ours is a guessing game. I don't know that General Assembly will go home early in the long session, you know, and if it goes till September, October, it just creates more havoc across the state in trying to implement programs.
Well, there are a lot of things that Mr. Jacobs mentioned that Umstead and I have spoken about, and it's just a matter of when we can get them on the agenda and give the staff ample time to put the data together. And I think that's the main reason. And we didn't, because we talked about the mental health presentation for today, but we thought that it was more important to talk about budget today. And, yeah, and maybe the next meeting we can get some of the mental health stuff done. We'll talk about that and decide where you want to go. If there's nothing else, we need to give the citizens an opportunity to speak. We've got, it's like Neil? Connor? Neil Connor. Yeah, okay, if you would go to, which mic, over there? Over here? And over here, and give your name and address, please. Right there.
Hello? Oh, yes. Okay. I'm Neil Connor.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Neil Connor, currently serving as a math interventionist at Little River School. I have an MBA from Duke University, class of '86. I need to read this word for word, as I know my emotions make speaking extemporaneously impossible for me. The stress of this has my eyes dancing already. Please be patient. I promise that it will not take all 3 minutes. I'm here representing myself. I've been a substitute teacher at 31 of our schools and have coached soccer, baseball, track and field since 2014. Additionally, I have been a free-of-charge ACT tutor to dozens of our DPS students, all of them from Northern High School. In my elementary classrooms, we've been reflecting on Martin Luther King's speech, "I Have a Dream." The optimism of this permeates our classrooms during these discussions. Once the conversations end, I have different words reverberating in my mind. I am at a loss. I am at a loss regarding how to help our schools. I am at a loss how to help better obtain appropriate support for their social, emotional, and behavioral challenges. Often we do not have appropriate number of counselors and behavioralists, and our frontline teachers spend a disproportionate amount of time stopping interruptions and redirecting inappropriate behavior. It makes pacing at a prescribed speed near impossible. Sadly, we cannot fill these positions at present. Pay these employees more, and they'll step forward. Too often, my exceptional students, and I love my EC students, reside in classrooms without adequate staff, both in number as well as an appropriately certified proportion. Administration fills this gap along with others. It strains the entire school community. I am at a loss when children needing before and after school have no place available. Pay the staff better. We did it with bus drivers, we can do it again. I'm at a loss when I assist our cafeterias and look at our healthy choices, often absent, both breakfast and lunch. I'm at a loss when I review the posted substitute opportunities available on Frontline, 313 today, knowing that only about 20% of them will be filled if our trend persists. Most of all, I am at a loss knowing how best to exert appropriate pressure on those who control our purse strings. Leandro is law. How do we best approach our state's legislature? I am at a loss. Board members, I'm at a loss, and while it is uncomfortable for me, it is devastating for our children. Please tell me how to remedy this situation and lead us to a state of fairness and adequacy for all Durham stakeholders. Thank you.
We have an additional public comment speaker, Karthik Sadaramurthy. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. I apologize.
Hi, I'm Karthik Sundaramurthy. I'm a parent of Durham Public Schools students, 5th grade and 3rd grade at George Watts Elementary School. I wanted to, I cannot speak as eloquently as my previous speaker, but what I wanted to bring to the board was attention. I mean, you have a lot of items that you are very thoughtful. Information was brought from the administrators, and you had really great discussions. But I wanted to add one more discussion to it, was the nutrition that happens in the schools. And we have the kids now transported to the school with the teachers, and I think it's only that we have to feed them, and we don't have to ask them to pay for it. So I know the taxes are up, and it's going to go up, but then that's our human capital. We need to invest in these kids, and if we can feed them, I think we should do it. We have them, we should feed them. And if it means another bond, put it up for the vote for the citizens to tax themselves, and families who cannot pay the taxes, we'll have to support them. But I feel that we can definitely feed our children when they are in our midst. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that concludes our public comments. And I know Chair Howerton has to step out, and I'll just add a couple of something. I was late today because I was at the Public School Forum's Eggs and Issues breakfast. And a lot of the things that we talked about this morning around funding and statewide advocacy was exactly what they talked about in this. So I'm happy to leave the primer here. But it talks about the top 5 issues are competitive compensation, a teacher pipeline, root causes of mental health, preparing students for the world they live in, and implement, monitor, and evaluate a comprehensive remedial plan. So I'll leave this resource here, but I'm excited to hear about the joint advocacy because it's going to take pressure from all of us to ensure our children have what they need. So. Yeah. Oh, sure. A couple of statistics. North Carolina ranks 38th in the nation in teacher pay. Beginning teacher pay in North Carolina starts at $37,000, falling 17% below Alabama, and well below the North Carolina minimum living wage of $48,346,000. The other stat we looked at, North Carolina ranks 48th in the country on per student spending when adjusting for regional cost differences, falling more than $4,600 below the national average. Our state ranks 50th in the nation on funding effort, or the amount of funding per student relative to the state's wealth overall. I think they started the meeting saying we're #1 place for businesses to come, but this is where we are when it comes to education. We have a lot of work to do, so I think this joint advocacy with our boards, with our associations, will really help move us in the right direction. I think with that, we could be adjourned.
Before we adjourn, I wanted to just congratulate the school board on the critically difficult work and essential work of the redistricting vote you all just made. And Wendy asked for more information on that, and that's a great request because it's probably going to take all of us to help our community understand it. But thank you so much. It's needed to be done for a long time. It's hard. Probably some of the hardest decisions I know you'll have to make, and I watched your meeting when you were sort of deliberating over when to vote, how to vote, where, Anyway, I just want to thank you for that and say how important it is.
And to also express gratitude for your new LGBTQI student policy, which it would be great if you could also send that to us. I did go online and read that, but that's another place that you all are leading the way, not just statewide, but nationally.
Thank you all. We're adjourned.